Have you ever felt it? A strange sense of nostalgia for a place you've never been? A faint, inner echo of a time of unimaginable wonder and profound wisdom? For thousands of years, humanity has been haunted by the ghost of a single story, the tale of a lost island continent, a beacon of civilization that vanished beneath the waves in a single day and night of violent catastrophe. We call Atlantis. But what if Atlantis was more than just a place? What if it was a promise? A symbol not of a lost continent, but of lost potential, of a forgotten chapter in the story of human consciousness itself. What if the true treasure of Atlantis wasn't its fabled riches of orichalcum and gold, but a sophisticated system of knowledge, a code for living in perfect harmony with the universe, with technology, and with the deepest aspects of the self? This is the question that has captivated not just dreamers and mystics, but brilliant minds across history. From philosophers and historians to pioneering scientists, the allure of Atlantis is the allure of a missing piece of our own puzzle. It represents a golden age, a standard against which we measure our own progress, and a chilling warning about the price of arrogance. The fascination endures because, deep down, we suspect the story is in some essential way about us. It's a legend that speaks to a fundamental human yearning for a world where spiritual wisdom and technological prowess are not in conflict, but are two sides of the same enlightened coin. We look at our own world, with its incredible advancements and its equally staggering crises, and we can't help but wonder if we are on a similar path, standing on a precipice we don't fully comprehend. This journey we are about to embark on is not just a retelling of an old myth. It is an investigation, a deep dive into the very heart of this enduring enigma. We will treat the legend of Atlantis as a vessel, a time capsule carrying a profound message. We will explore its origins in the writings of Plato, chart the maps of its possible locations, and then go deeper to decipher what esoteric traditions and ancient myths suggest was the true source of its power, a forgotten code. This code, we will find, was a blueprint for reality itself, woven from sacred geometry, vibrational energy, and a state of consciousness that we are only now beginning to rediscover through the lens of modern science. So, the central question we will pursue is not simply did Atlantis exist, but rather, what exactly was this forgotten code, and what can we learn from it now, in our own turbulent times, to build a better future? Our journey into the heart of this mystery begins with one of history's greatest minds, the Greek philosopher Plato. Around 360 BC, in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, Plato etched the story of Atlantis into the memory of Western civilization. He didn't present it as a fanciful fairy tale, but as a genuine historical account, passed down through his family from the great Athenian statesman, Solon, who in turn had heard it from Egyptian priests. These priests, the guardians of millennia of recorded history, spoke of an island empire, larger than Libya and Asia combined, situated beyond the Pillars of Hercules, what we now call the Strait of Gibraltar. This was Atlantis, a naval power of breathtaking sophistication, founded by Poseidon, the god of the sea, himself. Its people were descended from demigods and mortals, and for generations, they lived in a state of virtue, wisdom, and grace. They were masters of engineering, creating a magnificent capital city of concentric rings of land and water, with grand temples, advanced irrigation, and a social structure that fostered prosperity and justice. Plato's account is both a eulogy and a cautionary tale. He describes a civilization that possessed everything: wealth, power, and advanced knowledge, but eventually, it fell victim to a spiritual sickness. The divine portion of their soul, he wrote, faded away, and they became filled with unrighteous avarice and power. They turned from a peaceful nation into a tyrannical empire, launching an unprovoked war against Athens and the other nations of the Mediterranean. It was this moral corruption, this hubris, that sealed their fate. As a punishment from the gods, a night of violent earthquakes and floods consumed the island, causing it to sink beneath the sea, vanishing forever from the sight of man. This narrative has since become the bedrock of one of history's most ferocious debates. Is it literal history, a memory of a real Bronze Age catastrophe like the volcanic eruption of Thera, which destroyed the Minoan civilization on Santorini? Or is it a philosophical allegory, a thought experiment created by Plato to illustrate his ideas about the ideal state versus a corrupt one? The search for a physical Atlantis has sent explorers and theorists on a global scavenger hunt for over 2 millennia. Maps have been drawn, placing the lost continent everywhere from the windswept Azores Islands to the frozen wastes of Antarctica, hidden beneath miles of ice. Some point to the Bimini Road in the Bahamas, a submerged rock formation that seems unervingly man-made. Others suggest locations in the Caribbean, off the coast of Spain, or even in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, precisely where Plato said it was. Yet, despite all the searching, no definitive, conclusive proof has ever been found. But perhaps its physical location is secondary to the reason the story has endured with such tenacity. The legend of Atlantis is a perfect archetype. It is the story of paradise lost, of a golden age destroyed by human failing. It lives in our collective imagination, not because we have found its ruins, but because we feel its absence. It is a mirror reflecting our highest aspirations and our deepest fears about the nature of power, progress, and the delicate balance between the material and the spiritual. To truly understand the legacy of Atlantis, we must expand our definition of the word code. We're not searching for a string of characters or a secret password. The Forgotten Code of Atlantis, as described in esoteric traditions that have run parallel to mainstream history, was something far more profound. It was a complete operating system for reality. It was a holistic science of consciousness, a way of life where the physical and the metaphysical were not separate disciplines, but a unified field of understanding. This code was the knowledge of the fundamental patterns, frequencies, and principles that underpin the fabric of existence. It was the understanding that the universe is not a dead machine, but a living, conscious intelligence, and that humanity's purpose was to learn its language and participate in its creative expression. This was the source of Atlantean power, not just technological might, but a deep, resonant alignment with the cosmos itself. This deeper interpretation of the Atlantean legacy comes to us not from conventional archaeology, but from the often sidelined streams of esoteric wisdom. Thinkers and mystics from the Hermeticists of ancient Egypt to the Theosophists of the 19th century and the renowned 20th century psychic Edgar Cayce have all claimed to access a hidden history of humanity. In their accounts, Atlantis was the pinnacle of a lost form of science. Edgar Cayce, in his hundreds of life readings, described a highly advanced civilization that had harnessed the power of crystals, not just for energy, but as conscious devices for communication, healing, and data storage. He spoke of the Twai Stone, or the Great Crystal, a massive power generator that drew energy from the sun and the stars, but whose misuse ultimately led to the continent's destruction. Theosophy, founded by Helena Blavatsky, described the Atlanteans as the fourth of 7 root races in human evolution, a race that mastered psychic abilities and the manipulation of life force energy, which they called Vril. When we synthesize these esoteric accounts, the core elements of this forgotten code begin to emerge, forming a stunning blueprint for a harmonious civilization. First, there was sacred geometry, the understanding that specific shapes and patterns are the building blocks of creation, from the spiral of a galaxy to the structure of a DNA molecule. The Atlanteans, it is said, built their cities and temples according to these divine proportions to create fields of resonant energy. Second, energy manipulation. They were masters of vibration, using sound, light, and frequency not just for power, but for healing, levitation, and altering matter itself. Third, emotional and spiritual alignment. The code demanded inner mastery. Advanced technology was only entrusted to those who had achieved a high degree of emotional balance and ethical clarity, understanding that thought and emotion directly impact the external world. And finally, advanced ethics and social structure. Their society was designed to reflect cosmic law, fostering a sense of unity and collective purpose over individual greed. This code, in its entirety, was a formula for creating heaven on earth, a perfect synthesis of inner and outer harmony. Now, you might be thinking this all sounds like pure fantasy, a beautiful idea, but with no connection to the real world. But what if the evidence has been hiding in plain sight all along? What if the echoes of this Atlantean code can be found in the greatest achievements of ancient civilizations all across the globe? Let's just look at the uncanny similarities. Consider ancient Egypt. The Great Pyramid of Giza is a marvel of mathematical precision, aligned almost perfectly with the cardinal directions and encoding constants like pi and the golden ratio. Mainstream Egyptology tells us it was a tomb, yet it contains no original mummy and possesses strange acoustic and energetic properties that defy easy explanation. Esoteric traditions suggest the pyramids were not tombs at all, but harmonic resonators and initiation chambers, built with a lost science of sound and levitation, a science inherited from their Atlantean predecessors. The pattern doesn't stop in Egypt. Travel across the Atlantic to Mesoamerica. The pyramids of the Maya and the Aztecs are also astronomical clocks of incredible complexity. The Temple of Kukulkan at Chichen Itza is designed so that on the equinox, the sun creates a shadow of a serpent slithering down its steps. How did cultures separated by a vast ocean develop such similar architectural forms and a shared obsession with astronomy and serpentine gods? Now let's journey to the other side of the world, to Vedic India. Ancient texts like the Vedas and the Mahabharata speak of Vimanas, flying machines that could travel through the air and even into space. They describe advanced weaponry and a deep understanding of the cosmos, including a chakra system, a map of the energy centers within the human body that is remarkably similar to the Atlantean focus on inner energy mastery. All these cultures, Egyptian, Mesoamerican, Vedic, seem to share a common, high-level source code of knowledge in mathematics, astronomy, and the relationship between consciousness and the physical world. So, how do we explain these striking parallels? Is it just a massive coincidence? Or could there be a more profound connection? One theory is that of a mother culture. In this view, Atlantis was real, and its survivors, fleeing the cataclysm, spread across the globe, seeding their advanced knowledge among the primitive cultures they encountered. They became the civilizing gods or white brothers that appear in so many indigenous myths. Figures like Quetzalcoatl in the Americas or Thoth in Egypt. Another possibility is knowledge transmission through a shared field of consciousness, what psychologist Carl Jung called the collective unconscious. Perhaps this advanced knowledge isn't something that needs to be physically taught, but is a potentiality embedded within the human psyche itself, an archetypal memory that can be accessed during periods of heightened awareness. In this sense, myths are not just stories. They are data packets, repositories of ancient wisdom encoded in symbolic language, waiting for a generation with the right key to unlock them. Whether by boat or by consciousness, the code appears to have spread. So if the Atlanteans had this incredible code, what were their tools? How did they actually apply this knowledge? The esoteric texts paint a picture of a technology that looks far more like magic to us, because it was based on principles we are only just beginning to rediscover. At the forefront was the concept of vibrational medicine. They understood that all matter, including the human body, is simply energy vibrating at different frequencies. Sickness, therefore, was seen as a state of dissonance, a part of the body vibrating out of tune. Their primary method of healing involved using sound and light. Imagine sound baths on an epic scale, with precisely tuned frequencies generated by massive crystals and acoustic architecture, capable of shattering disease cells and regenerating healthy tissue. This wasn't just about relaxation. It was cellular-level bioengineering, using resonance to restore the body's perfect, original blueprint. This is an idea that is exploding in modern holistic practices, from tuning fork therapy to sound healing, all echoing this ancient Atlantean principle. Central to this entire system were crystals. To the Atlanteans, crystals were not just pretty rocks. They were living, conscious entities with a perfect, stable molecular structure that made them ideal amplifiers, transmitters, and storage devices for energy and information. Think of them as the hard drives and processors of a biological, conscious computer. Edgar Cayce's readings describe in detail how they would cut and tune crystals to specific frequencies to power their cities, communicate over long distances telepathically, and even facilitate astral travel. They understood that a crystal's lattice structure could hold a charge, not just an electrical charge, but a conscious, intentional one. By imprinting a thought or a healing intention into a crystal, it would then continuously broadcast that frequency into its environment. This concept, which sounds like science fiction, is now being explored in quantum physics, where scientists are investigating the potential for crystalline structures to be used in next-generation data storage and quantum computing. The Atlantean crystal was the ultimate fusion of spirit and matter. But their most powerful tools were not external. They were internal. The foundation of Atlantean society was the mastery of consciousness itself. Practices that we are now rediscovering, like meditation, breath work, and visualization, were considered fundamental life skills. They understood that the human body is a bioelectrical antenna, and through focused intention, they could tune their own frequency to access higher states of awareness and directly influence their reality. Breath work was used to charge the body with life force energy, or prana. Visualization wasn't just daydreaming. It was a focused mental projection powerful enough to manifest objects or influence events. A process modern neuroscience is beginning to validate with studies on neuroplasticity and the power of mind-body connection. Could it be that what we call quantum entanglement, the placebo effect, and the observer effect are just the scientific terms for the very same universal laws the Atlanteans had mastered? Are we, with our fMRI machines and quantum labs, simply reverse engineering the innate technology of human consciousness? For all its glory, the story of Atlantis is ultimately a tragedy. It's a story about a fall, and understanding that fall is perhaps the most critical part of deciphering its code. Plato is unequivocal about the cause. The Atlanteans did not fall because of a natural disaster that came out of nowhere. The natural disaster was a symptom, a final consequence of a deep, internal sickness. The cause was moral and spiritual decay. For generations, they had lived in a state of grace, valuing wisdom over wealth and unity over individual ambition. But, as Plato writes, when the divine portion began to fade away, and because it was blended too often with a mortal admixture, the human character became victorious. Their focus shifted from spiritual evolution to material gain and military conquest. They became arrogant, believing their technological power made them gods, no longer subject to the cosmic laws they had once revered. This pride, this hubris, was the original sin that corrupted their society from the inside out. The fall of Atlantis can be read on multiple levels. On a literal level, it's a warning about the fragility of even the most advanced civilizations. But on a symbolic level, it is a timeless allegory for the journey of the human soul. The rise and fall of Atlantis is the story of the rise and fall of the ego. It represents the eternal struggle within each of us between our divine portion, our higher self, connected to unity, compassion, and wisdom, and our mortal admixture, our ego, driven by fear, separation, greed, and a lust for power. The Atlanteans had the ultimate technology, but they lost connection to the heart. They could manipulate the external world, but they failed to master their internal one. The story serves as a profound warning. Technological advancement without a corresponding advancement in ethics, wisdom, and compassion is not just dangerous, it is self-destructive. It's a recipe for a spectacular implosion. And this is where the story of Atlantis ceases to be an ancient legend and becomes an urgent, modern-day parable. Look around us. We live in an age of technological miracles that would have been unimaginable a century ago. We can edit genes, connect with anyone on the planet instantly, and hold the power of artificial intelligence in our hands. We have, in many ways, become the gods of our own world. Yet at the same time, we face existential crises. Climate change fueled by unchecked industry, social divisions amplified by our own communication technologies, and the ever-present threat of weapons of mass destruction. We are gaining the power of gods, but are we cultivating the wisdom of gods to wield it? Is our own divine portion fading as we become ever more enamored with our material creations? The fall of Atlantis is not a story about them. It's a question for us. Are we repeating the same pattern? Are we building our own magnificent, technologically advanced civilization on a foundation of spiritual decay, destined for its own cataclysm? The story of Atlantis, then, is not meant to be a source of despair, but a source of profound inspiration and a practical guide for transformation. If we accept the myth as a blueprint, we can begin to extract its core principles and consciously activate this forgotten code in our own lives and in our society. The first and most crucial lesson is the primacy of inner development. The Atlantean Code teaches that the outer world is a reflection of the inner. Therefore, the most powerful way to change the world is to change ourselves. This means shifting our focus from the endless pursuit of external validation like wealth, status, and power, to the cultivation of inner qualities, compassion, integrity, wisdom, and emotional mastery. It means dedicating time to practices like meditation and self-reflection, not as a hobby, but as an essential part of a well-lived life. It's about building a solid, unshakable inner foundation before attempting to build grand structures in the outer world. The second principle we can activate is a deep reconnection with nature and universal laws. The Atlanteans saw the natural world not as a resource to be exploited, but as a living teacher and a reflection of divine intelligence. We can begin to live this principle by spending more time in nature, by observing its cycles and its effortless harmony. We can support and design technologies that work with nature, not against it, like renewable energy, regenerative agriculture, and biomimicry. It's about recognizing that the same sacred geometry found in a snowflake or a sunflower is also within us. To live by the code is to live in alignment with the earth, to treat it as a sacred partner in our evolution, not a commodity for our consumption. This leads directly to the third principle, the development of ethical technology and collective evolution. We must begin to ask a new set of questions about our innovations. Not just, can we do this? But, should we do this? What is the impact of this technology on human consciousness, on the environment, on our collective well-being? The goal becomes not just progress for progress's sake, but conscious evolution, where our technological growth serves our spiritual growth. And in fact, this activation is already happening. Look at the explosion of interest in holistic healing, mindfulness, and yoga. Look at the growing movement for sustainable living, conscious capitalism, and social justice. These are all modern expressions of the Atlantean Code resurfacing. The New Age movement, for all its diversity, is fundamentally an attempt to reintegrate the mystical and the scientific, the spiritual and the material. The renewed interest in sacred geometry in art, architecture, and design is a testament to our intuitive recognition of its harmonizing power. The challenge for each of us, then, is to reflect on our own lives. Where are we out of alignment with this code? Where are we choosing ego over wisdom, consumption over connection, division over unity? The myth of Atlantis empowers us by showing us the stakes. It challenges us not to be passive spectators of history, but to become active participants in writing a new story, one where we learn the lessons of the past to create a future worthy of our true potential. For centuries, the ideas we've discussed, energy fields, consciousness affecting matter, a collective human memory, were relegated to the realm of mysticism. But we are now living in an extraordinary time where the cutting edge of science is beginning to look startlingly like ancient wisdom. The gap between the laboratory and the temple is closing, And in the space between, we are finding powerful validation for the principles of the Atlantean Code. Take the work of the HeartMath Institute. Their research has scientifically demonstrated that the human heart generates a powerful electromagnetic field that changes based on our emotions. When we experience feelings like love and compassion, our heart rhythm becomes coherent, like a smooth, orderly sine wave. This coherence not only affects our own body, improving brain function and immune response, but can be measured in the field around us, affecting other people. This is scientific proof of the Atlantean principle that our emotional state directly impacts the energetic environment. They are, in effect, measuring the vibration of love. This convergence goes even deeper when we look at quantum physics. The once bizarre principles of the quantum world are now accepted science. The observer effect, for instance, shows that the very act of observing a particle changes its behavior, suggesting that consciousness is not a passive bystander, but an active participant in the creation of reality. The concept of quantum entanglement, what Einstein called spooky action at a distance, shows that two particles can be linked in such a way that what happens to one instantly affects the other, no matter how far apart they are. This provides a potential scientific framework for understanding phenomena like telepathy and the interconnectedness of all things, core tenets of the Atlantean worldview. They may not have used the term quantum field, but their understanding of a unified, conscious universe from which all things emerge is a perfect philosophical match. We are not discovering new laws. We are simply developing a new language to describe the ancient ones. And then there is the realm of psychology. The pioneering work of Carl Jung introduced the concept of the collective unconscious, a shared, inherited layer of the human psyche that contains archetypes, or universal symbols and stories, that are common to all of humanity. The myth of Atlantis itself is a powerful archetype, the paradise lost, the fall from grace. Jung proposed that these myths are not mere fictions, but are expressions of deep psychological truths that bubble up from this collective reservoir of human experience. Could this collective unconscious be the database or the cloud where the memory of Atlantis is stored? Are our dreams, our myths, and our flashes of intuition simply downloads from this ancient human server? The intersection of neuroscience, quantum physics, and depth psychology is painting a picture of a universe that is conscious, interconnected, and profoundly mysterious. A universe that the Atlanteans may have understood not through equations and instruments, but through direct, intuitive experience. Science is not debunking the myth. It's beginning to explain the mechanics of how it could have been true. We have journeyed from the dialogues of Plato to the frontiers of quantum physics, from the ruins of ancient Egypt to the depths of our own consciousness. We have explored the possibility that behind the myth of a sunken island lies the reality of a sunken wisdom, a forgotten code for living. And so we arrive at the ultimate conclusion. Whether Atlantis was a physical place of gold and orichalcum, or a powerful metaphorical teaching story, the distinction almost ceases to matter. Because the wisdom it represents, the code itself, is undeniably real and eternally relevant. It is the wisdom of harmony, the knowledge that we are not separate from the universe, but an integral part of its unfolding song. It is the understanding that true power is not the ability to dominate nature, but the ability to align with it. The code is timeless because it is written into the very fabric of existence. The story of Atlantis, therefore, presents humanity with a fundamental choice, a choice we face in every generation, and perhaps more urgently now than ever before. The choice is to remember or to repeat. To repeat the pattern of Atlantis is to continue down the path of unchecked ambition, to allow our technological power to outpace our moral wisdom, to pursue material wealth at the expense of our spiritual soul, and to live in a state of disconnection from each other and from our planet. This is the path of the fall, the path that leads, inevitably, to a cataclysm of our own making. But there is another path, the path of remembering. This is the path of consciously reactivating the code in our daily lives. It is the choice to value wisdom over information, connection over consumption, and unity over division. To remember is to see the sacred in the mundane, to listen to the quiet wisdom of our own heart, and to act from a place of love and respect for all life. This is not a passive act. Remembering is an active, creative process. It is a commitment. So how do we begin? We begin by exploring. Read the ancient texts for yourself. Study the patterns of sacred geometry. Learn about the healing power of sound and vibration. But most importantly, go inward. The greatest tool for deciphering this code is the one you already possess, your own consciousness. Meditate. Spend time in silence. Listen. The echoes of Atlantis, the whispers of this forgotten wisdom, are not in some dusty library or at the bottom of the ocean. They are inside you, waiting to be heard. The Forgotten Code of Atlantis is the blueprint of your own highest potential. The choice to live by it is yours to make, right here, right now. The story doesn't end here. It continues with you. What part of the Atlantean Code resonates most with you? What are you doing in your own life to build a more harmonious world? Share your thoughts and insights in the comments below. Let's create a community of modern-day code keepers. And if this journey into the heart of ancient wisdom has inspired you, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into the mysteries of our world. Share this video with anyone who you feel is ready to remember.